Well, everyone, hopefully you have received your package. It looks like this. I put your names and addresses on with stickers, so hopefully you can tear them off, and then you'll just have the paper if you'd like. You can even still use some of the labels for collage material. Even the label, return address label, is really beautiful and sparkly that maybe you could cut off and use. And then sort of getting the envelope open. Let's see what's in here. Let's see. So I have sent you a few things this month. So again, don't throw away this envelope. It's a beautiful envelope. I like to cut off that sticky part and open the envelope up so that it can be used as the actual collage paper itself. And in the last month I showed you you could take paint and mark this thing up and make it more unique and interesting. Even just taking a pencil and doing some interesting repetitive marks is really cool and can get your page started and activated in interesting ways. So just I can start taking it and cutting it. Again, remember there's different ways that we can cut our collage material. We can cut it with scissors or with an X-Acto knife, a blade cutter. We can fold our paper. Maybe create a really strong crease and rip it, and that will create a more not so sharp as the scissor cut, but it can create a softer but more specific line. And that fold doesn't have to be a straight line. It can be a curvy line or a zigzaggy line that's folded, and then you cut along that folded line. Or you could just rip the paper in random tears, which can be interesting. And I even have recently started to share with you guys, you can be more geometric with your cutting. You can create pattern. So cutting some similar shape like a rectangle or squares, and then recomposing them. So even in just this small example, this random drawing that I did, I now can take these papers and recompose them maybe into something more interesting. Sort of shaking it up a bit. So taking that random pattern and then reorganizing it into maybe something more dynamic or more interesting. So that's on the envelope. So keeping the envelope and allowing yourself to create collage material with it. The other thing I've sent along is this rice paper, this beautiful rice paper that I have made by taking plain, just white transparent rice paper, and I watered down some watercolor and did a wash over it. And then I put a little bit of green Envy alcohol pearl ink for these dots. And then you'll see this little tiny bit of dot action happening. And I wanted to share with you that if you take the Golden's products, if you take any Golden's fluid product, you can put it in a spray bottle, just any old spray bottle with a little bit of water, and you can make what I like to call little spritzers, color spritzers. So this is the green, and it has just plain water and a little bit of Golden fluid green phthalo in there, and you can see it will spray. It can spritz a little color. So that may be something, that's how I've activated this page and made it really interesting. But that may be something that you might want to include or play with in your practice. Instead of splattering or dripping paint on your pieces, you can make a little spritz of color. That can really add some interesting techniques. And then this paper itself is just really gorgeous. Again, you can cut it in with your hands, fold it, scissors, anything you want with this beautiful piece of paper. And it is has two sides really, a side that is more muted and then another side that is richer. So you may want to play with using both sides in your piece, so you get a variety of saturated versus dull color in your piece. And then you have these watercolor, these are dissolvable little swatches that I have sent you. And so what you can do is on a piece of paper, if you'd like, sort of any piece of paper, you can take just a little bit of water, and you guys all have two swatches, so it should have like a darker color and probably a lighter version of a color. And all you'll need to do, little fun thing, is dip a paintbrush into water, and you can rub it on that little swatch of paper and activate that color so that you can paint with it. Okay, so that will activate that little color, and you can get in there with mix the paints together if you'd like to create a couple of different hues or values in the piece. And then even once it's wet, maybe even turn it and use it as a stamp. That can do some interesting things. And then you'll end up having this little piece of paper that maybe you might end up collaging into your piece. Again, this little, and you can decide how much you want to use of this piece. You can dip it in and just take little bits of the color at a time so that you can use it in multiple ways. Okay, so this is a water activated swatch of color that you can use, and just be delicate about it if you want to keep the colors separate in your piece. Okay, so that's a really fun thing to play with, to get some mark making onto the page, some color onto the page. And now I've activated this piece. It has a little bit of water on here, so I can now go onto it, turn it around, and scrape and scratch the back of it to press and make marks with this interesting little piece. So, and especially since I was already a little damp on the page, I can put it over those damp areas and draw on the back of this little swatch, and it will transfer some of that that color onto the page. So this little swatch then becomes almost like a little stamp or a little transfer piece of paper. It won't work if you remove most of the color, but if there is a lot of the color on there, just either getting the page wet. You can see on this other little page, what I'll do is I'll show you getting the page wet first, damping the page a little bit. Then I'm going to take my little color swatch and put it over the top and press, and you can see that it takes that color. So you can create interesting textures, and if there's still some stuff on there, you can even go on a dry area and draw on the back to create some interesting designs. So really fun. And still, this piece, once it dries, maybe that becomes a piece of collage in your designs. All right, so another thing that I sent along, a really cute thing, are these little hearts here, just in time for Valentine's Day. They have a little bit of gold on them, so a little metallic. And you can use them just as they are, glue them into pieces, but I always like to show you these can become stencils in your pieces. I'm just going to get a little colored pencil, maybe this green color. Continue with that theme of the green, and I'm going to use it as a stencil, move it around in my piece, see if I can create some interesting shapes in my piece. I can turn it, use the other end, and if I use this again and again and overlap some of the shapes, it actually doesn't, it loses its heart quality and becomes an abstract shape. Playing with it as a stencil and only grabbing the edge of it or the curve of it and overlapping it. And you can draw right on this thing. You can draw with marker or caran d'Ache or colored pencil to activate it, change it up a little bit. And you can rip it if you want. You can rip it and use pieces of it in your piece. And again, this is another element that's transparent. So being aware of that when you put it on your page, you want to use its qualities to the best of your advantage, maybe showing that you can see through it. That's an interesting aspect of this collage piece. The one, also this one with the dots is semi-transparent. You can see underneath it. So make sure you're activating that quality of the piece. Even just putting it over this rice paper, you can see it shows some of the dots and the gold come through. I think I can even put it over my drawings like this, and it will show you that it shows through. There's a transparent quality. So play with that in your pieces. Then you have, on top of that, you have this piece of burlap that I've sent along. And you can do anything with these things. You can use it as like a little stencil. I'm just going into the little holes and coloring into the little holes, one little hole at a time, just to see what that might do or bring about on my page. It's sort of interesting. You see that kind of activates or sort of gets in the way so that your mark making becomes a little bit more interesting. Just playing with trying to color in those little pieces, and they keep moving around, so you'll inevitably get these really interesting dots. Of course, you can use the material just as is, just glue it right over an area if you'd like. You can, your burlap probably will start to come apart if you want. You can pull some of these pieces out and play with the more linear quality. Maybe it becomes a fringe on the edge of your page, or fringe in a painting or collage. You can also, you got this string, you can do whatever you want with this stuff. I'm just giving you some tips and tricks to get you kind of excited, activated. Again, this idea of wrapping the string around, using it as a drawing tool to create arches and circles in your piece. You can also use it as, some of my classes we've been working with books, so maybe this becomes sort of the cover of a book with pages. And then maybe your string becomes the wrap that holds it together. Maybe that. All right, so I have brought up this tool once or twice now, this rug hooking tool that would really allow me to sort of puncture through that hole I made and grab this yarn. See, I'm grabbing it, I'm getting it caught on that hook, and I'm pulling it through. Okay, so then maybe I actually tie the piece of burlap. This is just one option. This is just one creative option that you can test out or try on for size. How to play with this burlap in an interesting way. Maybe you tie it or weave it into your piece of paper. I'm just going to cut this off. You can see I have this collage paper, and then maybe I tie this burlap on there with the green. And that's going to give you a little texture, little interest. Who knows what you can do. But this is just one idea. So I have now tied the burlap onto my collage piece of paper. And again, this might go a little further. I might cut this, and maybe I end up sticking this piece of heart underneath the burlap. Create an interesting piece. Maybe I take some of these other collage pieces that I now have created, or even this piece here that I was showing you the demo. Maybe I take a piece of that, and then that becomes a part of this collage. And of course, you can use other things. You can incorporate other pieces of paper, other old paintings if you have them around. It doesn't have to just be the stuff I sent you. It can be other pieces of collage material that maybe you incorporate into the piece. So see, I'm just sort of playing out loud, thinking about what could go together. So there's no wrong way. And I love to see what you guys are doing. This piece too, if you look at it, it has a silvery side, and then it has a gold side. So another piece where you might want to think about which side you're using. How does it affect the overall look of the piece? And remember too that it is transparent, so you can sort of add a little layer or soften areas of your piece with this little cute heart. And then of course this one has the honeycomb design on it that's really pretty, that you can incorporate anywhere on your piece. All right, so hopefully you're finding something fun. You get a little inspired with this little video of what you can do with your collage materials. Once you get kind of started, then intuition sort of comes alive, and you just keep playing and following along with it.